Now, the Independent Electoral Commission says over 27.79 million voters have, of course, registered to vote in these upcoming elections. That's the highest since the dawn of democracy in South Africa, and they are eligible to cast their votes in the 2024 National and Provincial Elections. So on the 29th of May this year, South African citizens will go to the polls with a choice on who they want to lead this country. However, just under 5 million, that's about 4.95 million of these voters, are 18 to 29 years of age. And that comprises of about 18% of the voters' roll. Moreover, young people have the potential to be a very powerful force for change, but only if they engage in the political process. Now, when considering that young people aged 18 to 35 constitute a substantial portion of the South African population, why are we seeing less young people actively participating in the electoral process? Well, to discuss this matter, we are joined in studio by the Executive Director of Activate Change Drivers, Tebogo Suping, and Seth Mazibuko, the former student leader of the June 16, 1976 march, and now, of course, the Chief Operations Officer of the Moral Regeneration Movement. So nice to have both of you here with us in studio.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, very interesting statistics, and in fact, perhaps maybe as we begin this interview, because I think it's nice to look at the facts as they are, and we will speak to them. Here's a graphic that we put together for the viewers and for all of us to look at, with a breakdown of the age groups of the registered voters. So, quite interesting. Those aged between 18 to 19 are 27% of the voters. But look at that, 114.7% are 80 years and older. I mean, that's a massive chunk. Then we look at the 50 to 59, which is 90%, 60 to 69. Remember, this is the population. So of the population, these are the amount that have actually gone out and registered. And we can get a clear picture as to who's interested in voting and who's actually really not interested in voting. So let's break this down. Okay. There's even more of a breakdown for you. So 18 to 19 are 2 million registered voters, or just over. 20 to 29 is 9 million. And it climbs up to the 30 to 39 bracket are 10 million registered voters. So there's a big one for you. 40 to 49, 7.5. 50 to 59, 5 million. 60 to 69 is 3.3 million, and 70 to 79 is 1.7 million. So the biggest bracket is in the 30 to 39,
and 40 to 49.
That's kind of a telling. What do these numbers tell you? I mean, let's start there. Do you want to begin, Tebogo?
Sure. I mean, if we look at the margin of age of 20 to 29, and you look at it against who's unemployed, they mirror each other.
Yeah.
It's that same age gap. If you look at the 18 to 19-year-olds, if you look at who's now clustered in the sector of not in education, employment, and training, it's the ones who just left high school, who are idle. And so what we should be talking about is what are the reasons that are resulting in young people not showing up. Young people not showing up because the country is not showing up for young people. And we just, because we are at election mode, we're talking about elections, but we're not talking about the lived experiences of young people. And if we don't as a country respond to those challenges, the numbers will continue to decline. And as Activate Change Drivers, we're making it our mission to go back to grassroots and have conversations with young people to say, things being as they were, how do we engage you so that we can start to give you a voice within the public spectrum, so that you can speak out and be heard, so that you can let politicians to know what is important to you. Because what is happening at the moment is we're all of a sudden speaking about why young people are not showing up. We're post-elections. We will continue and carry on with country conversations and forget about what it is that's important to them.
Yeah, I like your analogy on that. Let's perhaps, Seth, talk to us. What do you think?
You know, just yesterday, with one of our partners, I saw that it was on your news snippets. We had a prayer, a national day of prayer with the South African Council of Churches. And what was interesting is to see almost all political parties under one roof holding hands. but seeing less of youth participation. Where were they? There were only few that were there. Later in the evening, we were at UJ, now meeting with youth voters. Liam, it's sad how our young people have even forgotten about issues youth, but get so much entangled into issues, political party ideologies and differences. If you were sitting there yesterday, I was sitting and I never even participated in conversation. But I said, what are our youth telling you? It's complaints, and complaints against a party, against another party. We have put our young people under t-shirts of parties, not in dealing with issues youth.
Yeah.
And I think we owe this apology as adults, and maybe many politicians, of having to go back to our young people and say, you are a bigger stakeholder of the project South Africa. And as a bigger stakeholder, play your biggest role. And we are not saying that as adults because they'll be taking a big chunk of our cake and we are protecting our cake. We would rather get them away and get them entangled in our differences, in our ideologies. And it's just sad. Yeah. We are really killing our future. There was more, it was just short of doing 1976 throwing stones. I mean, really, it was just short of that. And I think there must be a new mandate. Young people should come together and say, you old people, Seth, Mazibukos, and the rest of you, get aside. Here is our mandate. Here is our vision. Here is what and this is what Activate and Moral Regeneration we are trying to do now. We are trying to say, let's get into this intensive civil education program. That is then going to say to young people, this is it. This is what your vote can do, instead of getting them into the bedrooms and they come out being 3 and avoid the boardroom.
All right, so let's have a look at this because I find it even more interesting. I mean, if we look back at the youngest voter, 18 years old.
Yes.
They were born in 2006.
Yeah.
Right.
They've been born into almost a broken political system.
Yes.
Right.
You're born into a system in South Africa that, let's be honest, has not been working very well.
Yeah.
They were born into load shedding.
Yes.
Yes.
They were born into watching politicians climbing into each other
Yes.
in Parliament.
Yes.
They were born into times where there is no water, where there's fighting for education,
Yes.
where there is a constant battle in their lives.
Yes.
So I do wonder how I would feel if I was born in these years. So you help us.
Yes.
How do the youth actually feel when they look at politicians and say, well, why must we trust them? Like, I mean, what are they really doing for us?
So we've spent a lot of time, I think we spent the 5 past years going into communities to engage young people about what's really on your mind. So how do you experience the day-to-days of your lives on democracy? And I can tell you for free that young people are saying democracy is of no value to me. Democracy is of no value to me because I have no dignity, because I have no water. Democracy is of no value to me because I don't feel protected as a citizen in this country. I mean, one young person in KZN, when we went, he said, what would be the purpose of me voting for a country where I'm living in the same conditions that my grandmother did? And those are the sentiments that we overlook. We overlook the fact that it is going to be the populace who are going to reach the ears of young people, which is very dangerous for us as a country, because those are the ones who speak the language. They might not bring the results, but the rational politicians are spending too much time politicking and not spending enough time really responding to the needs of our times.
Yeah.
And all of us, in all truthfulness, are to blame, because we've left the young ones to wonder where to go and what to do next. We've really not set a trajectory that says to young people, this is how we're going to integrate you into the socioeconomic conversations of this country. We haven't said to the young person who passes matric, who doesn't qualify to do anything else after that, we haven't said to them what comes next. And yet here we are with spotlights and cameras speaking to them about voting and elections. And young people are protesting against elections. They're not apathetic. They show up in spaces when you call them up to come and speak to their views. But they're saying, don't treat me like a voting cow. Don't treat me like an entity that doesn't matter. When you see me every day and decide not to do anything about how I'm living in the day-to-days. And so what Activate is doing is we're actually spending time going into communities, the marginalized communities. I mean, we were hosting soccer tournaments to get young people to register to vote. We took young people hiking. We went into community halls to get young people to vote. We went with the IEC into schools because we're also not bringing conversations to where young people are at.
Yeah.
And so we wonder why they're not coming to the table, because there's no room there for them to participate.
And it's a big problem. It is a very big
100%.
problem, because I mean, when you look at, you know, our leaders and you look at the ages of our leaders, you know, this is something that is certainly questionable. I mean, when you look at the average age of our parliamentarians, and we celebrate when we have, you know, one young parliamentarian, it's the youngest we've ever seen, and this is like incredible. However, do the ideas even are they representative of the youth? And that's what we have to keep on questioning here. The youth are the future, but are we talking to the future, or are we constantly talking backwards? Like when I listen to people saying, the fourth industrial revolution, I think the fourth industrial revolution is nearly over. I mean, we're basically in the fifth industrial revolution, and we're still talking about the fourth industrial revolution. These are the kind of things that I think the youth want to hear, they want to participate, they have fresh ideas. Let's hear from them, in fact. Here's another one from Letswapo saying, the IEC no longer conducting voter education. It's also the IEC's duty to educate the electorate as to why they should vote. So let's look at that. Do you think the youth are educated enough when it comes to the power of the vote? I mean, you know how powerful the vote is, Seth.
Yes.
But do the youth know how powerful it is? And in fact, for them, is it a powerful thing to do?
Look, Liam, you know, programs such as, for instance, Activate, when they go out for civic education, that is why we join them as Moral Regeneration. And it is because we still feel very strongly that there is that edge that says young people want to vote, but then us, the older generation, block them. And if they do vote, as we were just saying, because we still want to retain our parliamentary seats, you know, and again, there's a lot of young people who are not at all going not interested in maybe having to go to parliament, but some of them might be interested in doing developmental work. And we then say to them, no, you have no space. We speak to them as though the only thing that you do if you've voted is economically empowered, and if not that, parliament. And there are some of these young people who say, that's the space I don't want. And those are the ones sometimes that we lose, even when we go out there to educate and to work with them. But again, Leanne, let's come back to this, that now there's a lot that I know our young people, I work with them, I know them every day, you know, are very interested in having to go out there and vote, with or without education. But they're only saying, what after? Somebody yesterday was praying in that National Day of Prayer. He was saying, please don't think that now we only need food after 5 years, or we need dukes after 5 years, or T-shirt after 5 years. We need these even between the voting time and that time. And that's the sad part, that we are not setting, us as adults, we are not setting a good example that can encourage our young people to go out there and vote. And let us accept.
Let's have a look at some more comments coming in. This is from Elvis saying, youth see politics as a mafia game because of corruption and too much mediocrity. Not many of our youth would want to be associated with perceived underworld. Lastly, I don't think there's enough appetite to involve them because ethical youth might disturb the pattern. I like that from Elvis. Well, let's add another one on, and then we'll get some comments from you here. Let's put the next one up, guys. Ernest saying, because they feel like they are neglected and not given a fair chance to participate, leaders don't care about the youth. They think for themselves. Yes. Okay, I mean, it's kind of affirming what you've been saying, Seth. But Tebogo, what do you think?
It goes without saying when you see representation of who's in parliament, when you see who's in the legislature, when you see who's in the local councils. But what we also need to start to realize is that there is the rising of a new constituency of young people who are not tokenized, who are not held back by the sentiments of the past, who are not held back by history that serves no purpose in their current realities. There's a rise in the constituencies. If you see what is happening in the universities, the revival of politics, as it were, in those spaces is showcasing that young people actually are there. What they are looking at is they don't want to be used by political parties, the old and the new. And so what we are doing is, how do we then work to shape that? So how do you get young people to understand that the protest, as part of your democratic right, is not the sole way of advocating for the changes that you want to see? We're bringing public policy close to young people. We're saying to young people, go and occupy the spaces in the IDP meetings, because that's where government determines what the priorities are for service delivery. We're saying to young people, know and understand that burning a tire will get you only but attention for a brief second, but actually holding councillors accountable is the way that it works. Understanding how to navigate the socio-political environment is very crucial, as important, because politicians play to the spectrum of the ignorance of political participation on young people. But actually, when you give them the information, they show up.
Yeah.
In the last local elections, I mean, we were working with young people. We have about 13 young people who are part of our network who are local councillors, but they didn't have access to that information. So when you bring it to them, they will show up. And the more we get closer and closer to young people in ways that are much more meaningful than what we're doing right now, we're going to start to see a shift going into 2029. And this is why, at this moment in 2024, you have no political party that knows for certain what the outcome will be.
Certainly not. Do you like the look? I'll come to you now. Do you like the look of the diversity in age of political leaders these days? The different parties, the different independent candidates, the emergence of new voices. Do you like this as the youth? Are you seeing yourself being represented, or still not?
I don't think we like that everybody wants to be president with no solutions.
I like that as well.
We just because there's a lot doesn't mean there's a lot of substance in it.
Okay.
And so what we're also seeing is the emergence of people who are just popping up. And we say, where do you come from?
Yeah.
And what are you really saying?
Yeah.
We're seeing people who've been here for 30 years who haven't really gotten it right. And so you need to really start to speak to issues that matter to us as young people. If you're speaking climate change, what are you saying that we're going to do about scarcity and food security? Everybody's having the job conversation, and we see that nobody has gotten it right. The ruling party and oppositions, as it were. And what we're also seeing is political parties, even in the new, who speak about the youth. Do we have a face of a young person in any political party? We don't. And so we're seeing right through that.
Yeah.
And this is the time now where, as young people, we're saying, good and well, but just know for certain that we are on the up and rise. And once we get it right, and once we all come together in ways that really matter, young people's vote is going to determine who's going to lead the country. It might not happen in 2024, but in 2029 is something to look out for.
61 years of age, that's the average age of the cabinet ministers in this country, 61 years old. Quick voice note, then I'm coming to you, Seth, just to get a quick view. Here's one of our viewers that called in on our WhatsApp line.
Good morning. I think the reason why the youth may not be voting is that we burden them with issues which do not necessarily address their immediate concerns. Instead, we burden them with ideologies and history and so on. If we address their concerns as in now, we would have them actively participating. Thank you.
Are the ideologies a burden, Seth? I mean, give me your views. What do you think?
All I'm saying, and I'm happy that the last listener was actually having exactly what I'm trying to say here. You know, we have told the story of Din Swallow, wasn't it?
Yes, Din Swallow. That's
Din Swallow.
Yeah.
But my problem is we have not told the story of Dikelidi's tears. We have forgotten the story of those young people who are still crying out there. And we're saying it's a good story, Dinswalo. But now, what is the story of that Dikeledi? Or what is that child that is still falling in the pit hole? What is the story of the child in the classroom who is not attended? Somebody was boasting about having to give food to children, nutrition. He actually called it nutritious food in schools. And I'm saying, but we know what's happening there. All I'm saying, Leanne, is that I think in whatever, if those 60-year-olds my age that is sitting there and tired in Parliament, if could start, giving space of a simple thing, engaging, we need this kind of engagement. We owe it to them to say this is where we come from. And now tell us where you're getting to. Yeah. By the way, we are holding a national youth summit next month to talk about that. This is where we're coming from. I mean, Thabo Mbeki speaks of the national dialogue. We haven't yet spoken about the youth dialogue, where they could define the mandate, define the vision. I mean, we are tired in holding South Africa. They should be taking over. Yeah. They should be saying now with this, with the energy, but they should be doing it ethically. We should be now starting to be MRM with them. We're working on what we're busy with, what we call the Charter of Election Ethics, because we are saying young people should not fall into the trap of even producing unethical leaders who are still going to put us back into where we are today. And again, the issues of Dinswalo, the issues of Dikeledi, let's still give that ears and do something. That's a Dikeledi who will say, yes, you have given me water, but that water is sick. Okay. You say, you've given me electricity, but that electricity is full of load shedding. You have given me a house, but that house doesn't fit my privacy.
Yeah, and it falls apart.
Yes.
That's a big problem. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'm going to give you each a minute just to wrap this up. We've got 2 minutes to go. I sort of liked what you were saying about, I don't know if the youth want to keep looking back.
Right.
Because yes, we keep seeing the vision backwards of where we've come from, which is great. But do you see a vision of South Africa in 2040? What does it look like? Do you like what you've been told? Or have you actually not been told the vision going forward? Give me your views and let's wrap it up.
I mean, as Activate Change drivers, we're working with vast partners, which includes Moral Regeneration Movement, which includes the United Nations Development Programme, because we're saying even as part of the holistic development approach, we haven't placed people at the center of it. We speak stats, we speak numbers, we speak the politics of it, but the needle is not shifting in terms of the lived experience. We cannot speak of it in Tswalo. I don't know who wrote that for the president, to speak of a young person who represents a perpetual dependent of the state. And that is not a young person who thrives. And the kind of future that young people want is one where young people's livelihood matters, where young people will get up in the morning and work for themselves, where young people will not be tokenized with 350 rands, that shreds your dignity and erodes you of your potential as a young person to lead. What we're saying in this country is if the country is not prepared to listen, young people will speak up. And if we really don't pay attention, they will speak up in ways that are outside of the democratic process, which is what Activate is working tirelessly to say. We need to get up, we need to understand and realize that post the 2024 elections, if we're not going to do right by young people are going to show up exactly and tell us what it is that they're going to do about it. However, having said that, I say to young people, things being as they are, you need to realize that this is the greatest opportunity that you have to rise above the challenges that you face. This is the greatest opportunity to show young people that you could actually shift things around if you wanted to. And because we were going to give you a chance to do that, you need to even show the ruling party and oppositions, as it were, to say we might even go extreme left and not choose any of the top 4 parties because they're too complacent.
All right, let's leave it there. Seth? I was giving your voice to the youth.
No.
I hope you like that.
She spoke on my behalf.
She did.
I'm
Great.
still young, be careful.
And that is how it is, Seth. Thank you for joining us. Tebogo beautifully said, thank you for being here and being a voice of a youth that desperately want participation in the economy and not the hand-me-outs that are being promised.